I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all day through. In that small cafe, the park, across the way, the children's carousel, the maple tree, the wishing well. I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you. Battle Creek has some beautiful examples of amazing architecture and design. Sometimes these amazing buildings just blend into the background of our community and we don't notice them. But there are some that are so striking that they refuse to be ignored. One of those beautiful examples is the old Merchants National Bank building, which we now call the Milton. My personal realization of what a unique piece of art that building is came to me back in 1981 when I was working on the Battle Creek Sesquicentennial, our city's 150th birthday. One of the city planners and the chair of our Pioneer Village Committee, Phil Schultz, told our committee that he had recently met with a group of architects that had been traveling between Detroit and Chicago to look for examples of Art Deco architecture for a book they were writing. They had already visited Detroit and had stopped in Battle Creek to get something to eat before heading on to Chicago. After finishing their lunch, they walked around downtown and just happened to go into the Security National Bank building and were amazed by what an incredible example of an Art Deco masterpiece the building was. They told Phil that they thought it was a much finer example of an Art Deco building than the Detroit Fisher Building. They loved it. Their comments made me realize what a gem of a building we had right here in the center of our downtown. My belief that this building should be preserved went as far as me stating, and writing it on one of my personally drawn calendars, that I would stand in front of a wrecking ball to prevent this masterpiece of architecture from being destroyed. I am so glad I never had to act on that promise. Not only is the building a beautiful example of Art Deco design, it has an amazing story. A story that includes that it was almost demolished multiple times, but it was saved by a group of devoted people that brought it back from the brink. I'm not too good at interpreting financial transactions, but I am pretty good at being a historian, so bear with me as I try to tell the story of this amazing building. But let's start at the building's beginning, and that takes us back to the 1920s. As the Roaring Twenties came to an end, two banks in Battle Creek had been very, very successful. They were the Merchants Savings Bank and the Old National Bank. They were located in the center of downtown on Michigan Avenue, very near each other. This photo from 1917 looking east shows their locations on the site of the future tower, the Merchants Bank, and a little closer the Old National Bank, and that there was just one building between them. In 1929, they merged together to become the largest financial institution between Detroit and Chicago. They named their new entity the Old Merchants National Bank. Not the most creative name, but it got the point that they were joining their financial businesses. With their successful merger, they decided to commission a new, larger building. It was designed by the Chicago firm of Weary and Alford. They were famous for designing bank buildings and other office structures across the Midwest. They designed the City Hall and the American National Bank in Kalamazoo. Their portfolio also included dozens of banks erected in this early part of the century, including the Great Western Center in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the Merchants National Bank Building in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the Mariner Tower in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the First National Bank Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. To promote their new building, the architectural firm created a booklet containing information about the project with drawings of the building showing its proposed beauty. It described the building as the Tower of Distinction. The presentation was created to excite and educate the community regarding the new bank building, along with selling rental space to prospective clients. In the booklet's introduction, they proudly proclaimed that the new structure will be an architectural expression of high ideals and conscientious devotion to civic responsibility. This was going to be more than just a bank. It was the physical representation of the hopes, dreams, and goals of the Battle Creek area citizens. Their promise to businesses and individuals who might want to rent space in the building stated, "Your office in this outstanding building of unexcelled appointments, catering only to discriminating and reputable tenants, and in their proximity to the largest Battle Creek banking institution, cannot help but enhance your prestige." The drawings illustrated an impressively cathedral of commerce. Both of the old bank buildings were only separated by the Penniman Building, a structure that housed a furniture store and offices on the upper floors. The bank purchased the Penniman Building so they could use all three of the city lots to build the new 20-storied skyscraper right in the center of downtown Battle Creek. Construction began in May 1930, directed by Detroit contractors Walbridge and Aldinger, who were under strict instructions to employ as many local firms and laborers for the project whenever possible. Some out-of-town builders had to be brought in to assist with the endeavor. They were African-American workers who were experts at high-rise construction, which was a fairly new building style in the Midwest. These men worked specifically on erecting and dismantling scaffolding, along with operating the exterior hoists used to lift building material to the higher floors. The steel and concrete building was constructed in 3 phases to allow for uninterrupted bank services. They wanted to continue to offer their services to the community while the new building was being built, and to keep making money. The old Merchant Savings Bank, along with the Penniman Building, were demolished first, so construction could begin on the east portion of the building. That left the west side of the building site untouched. That left the old National Bank and Trust Building to be used, and it remained in operation while construction could continue. When the eastern part of the building was completed enough to be used for banking business, the old National Bank building was demolished and all of the banking operations moved into the newly completed area. The move took place over the 3-day Washington's birthday holiday of 1931. In a 1971 biography of Wilbur Gast, a longtime employee of the bank, he said that during that move, he had contracted diphtheria, along with several other of the bank employees. They attributed their illness to the draftiness of the open construction areas. To avoid an epidemic, all personnel in the trust department were required to be vaccinated. In this photo, the old National Bank has been torn down, and you can see the rounded area over the 4th floor that was going to hold the large circular skylight. It's overhanging the empty space. "300 men scaled the metal framework in swift effort to finish the building and trim each office to the specifications of its occupants. Plus, there may have been a competition to consider. The Central National Bank, just down the street on the corner of Michigan and McKay, was also constructing a similar-looking Art Deco building. The two buildings seemed to be racing each other to the sky, and the newspapers regularly posted progress reports of the skyscrapers, using the vocabulary of competition. According to the Battle Creek Enquirer, steel workers were a major attraction to many people in the city who had never seen such a construction process before. Each day while the steelwork was being carried on, several hundred persons would gather in McKay Street to watch the riveters toss red-hot rivets and climb from beam to beam high above the street level. At that time, riveters were paid about $2.60 an hour for their daring labor. Thankfully, no workers were killed while building the old Merchants National Bank building. But in the end, the Central National Bank won the race to the top. It was designed by architects Holabard and Rocher. It took 299 days to complete and topped off on June 20th, 1931 at 233 feet tall with 18 stories of retail and rental space, plus a 2-story residential penthouse called the Skylark's Nest. It also displayed some amazing Art Deco details. There was a brass sculpture over the building's main entrance sharing the story of American commerce. Along with its elevators, there were also embedded with similar bas-relief designs. The Central National Bank building's banking room was also breathtaking, but in a slightly different style than the old Merchants National Bank. The old Merchants National Bank building's final rivet was driven by the bank's cashier and the vice president, who were given the honor on Monday, May 25th, 1931. The new 238-foot, 6-inch, 20-storied building held its public opening on August 15th, 1931. The old Merchants National Bank was 5 1/2 feet taller than the Central Bank. The total cost of construction of this tower of distinction was a little more than $1.7 million. The exterior of the building is constructed of almost 2,000 tons of gray Bedford, Indiana limestone. Fear that the building's incredible weight might cause it to settle over the years and crack the stonework, special angles were cut into the stones so that each slab rested directly on the steel framework of the tower itself. The base of the Michigan Avenue facade is trimmed with black granite, the only use of this material in Michigan outside of Detroit at the time of its construction. The building's main entrance had ornamental metal grillwork covering the 3-storied front window. 2 bas-relief sculptures of female figures are on both sides of the lobby front windows, with a daisy-like floral design above them both. 2 large decorative lamps on each side of the entrance appear to be extending from the mouth of some kind of stone-carved sea creature. Metal peacocks decorate the windows on the 4th-floor level facing Michigan Avenue. Intricate carved leaves and vines decorate the limestone facade, along with lions' heads directly above the 4th-floor windows. The recessed bays that hold dark metal window frames give a vertical feel to the building. 2 eagles are carved into the top of the building's exterior and look out over the community. The stonework is amazing. Passing through the entrance's two revolving doors, or central door, you enter the ground floor main lobby that has been decorated with 70 tons of richly grained red Levanto marble from Italy. To the left of the entrance, the elevator lobby has 3 elevator doors, each finely grained and made of burnished cast aluminum. Art Deco leaves are etched into each door, and the lobby ceiling uses design features similar to the carvings in the building's exterior limestone. As the latest in safety devices, telephones were placed in each of the elevators. A central mailbox with glass tube extended to all the floors above and is decorated with an eagle, along with the building's directory, both made of cast aluminum. There is a ground floor arcade connected to Michigan Avenue and Jackson Street. It offered space for retail stores. The safe deposit vault is located on the ground floor along the arcade passageway. The entrance to the vault area was protected by a Swedish iron grillwork. The vault door, more than 3 feet thick, is a huge 2-ton blockade of stainless steel. Inside the vault area, there were more than 5,000 safety deposit boxes for patrons' use. As a safety feature, if by chance someone was accidentally sealed inside the vault, a ventilation system would supply air. An alarm system inside the vault used sound waves and was considered the most sensitive system known to science at the time. There are 2 other vaults in the building, one for the trust department and one for the cash department. Both vaults weigh 12 tons with walls that are a foot thick. For added safety, dual controls ensured that a person could not open the door alone. The doors are made from chrome vanadium steel that resists heat, drilling, and blunt force. The magnificent banking room was reached by a grand staircase with moving stairways, better known now as escalators. The original escalators were made of wood and could carry 4,000 patrons an hour at a speed of 90 feet per minute. They were made and installed by the Otis Elevator Company, and they were the first escalators to ever be used in any bank. The grand staircase and escalators could be closed off at the end of the banking day by an elaborate ornamented grilled aluminum gateway. When not in use, the gateway was stored under the floor and could be raised from its storage area, and 2 grilled side doors could be swung closed and locked in place, sealing off the public. The great banking room with dome and 2 skylights, along with financial offices, occupied the 2nd through the 5th floors. There were separate areas for checking accounts, savings accounts, Christmas clubs, notes, mortgages, drafts, collections, and contracts. The walls of the 4-story banking room were covered with 110 tons of golden travertine marble from Czechoslovakia. The floors of both the ground floor and the banking room are paved with blocks of Roman travertine marble from Copagna, Italy. The wall's decorative murals contain motifs of fruits, animals, grains, squirrels, and beehives, both that are symbols of banking. The design of the entire massive ceiling uses soft pastel colors and gold leaf to bring warmth into the room. The artwork was designed by the architects along with Alexander Reinspoth of Chicago. Artisans working for months to stencil the hand paint and designs on the walls and ceiling. Each of the banking room's 3 skylights house a large cable-hung light fixture with etched decorative glass that were designed by Victor Perlman and weigh 1,200 pounds each. The central chandelier is suspended from the 46-foot-high central dome. It is raised and lowered for maintenance by an innovative pulley system. In the banking room side galleries, ceiling lights from the old National Bank, shown here, were updated and reused in the new building. The ventilating grills, gates, check desks, and metal fences were constructed of Swedish white iron that was manufactured by the General Bronze Corporation of Minneapolis. Cast aluminum was used for the desk lamps, ashtrays, and ornamental pieces. The check desks, or banking tables, could easily be removed to clear the floor for special events or weddings. The woodwork at the 30 teller stations had intricate diamond patterns reflecting adornment of the lobby walls. The private offices of the bank officials were as stunning in their comfort as the public areas were in their opulence. The chairman of the board's office, belonging to William J. Smith, was located on the northeast corner of the bank, overlooking West Michigan Avenue. The wood panels were of Australian lacewood. The bank's president, Lon Karcher's office, was decorated in black walnut and satinwood, and the bank's vice president and trust officer was E.M. Marvin, whose office overlooked the northwest corner of the building and was finished with English oak. The 6th floor up to the 16th floor was offered to physicians with added features of compressed air, gas, and special electrical currents for X-ray and similar devices. The upper floor hallways were lined with Tennessee Travernell marble wainscoting, and the floors were made of quiet rubberized tile. There were men and women restrooms alternating on each floor. The office doors had burglar-proof locks. Occupancy was at 70% when the building opened. The local social club, named the Athelston Club, rented the top 3 floors for their dining and club rooms. There are no known photos, but the Athelston Club was lavishly decorated by the Tietzel Company of Detroit, a design firm whose clients included both the prestigious Grosse Pointe and the Detroit yacht clubs. Most of the 17th floor was dedicated to the dining room. The oak parquet floor and walls, papered in French pastoral scenes, reflected the 18th century English period. The leather upholstered Chippendale chairs and mahogany tables further reflected the elegance of the club. Both lunch and dinner were served daily in the dining room. The lounge on the 18th floor was another luxurious room with wine-colored carpet and custom-designed furniture and hand-block print linen draperies. A reading room trimmed in oak was unusually comfortable and quiet, elegance at its finest. The expansive billiard room and a second card room comprised the 19th floor and featured tiled floor with English oak card chairs. This photo is from the 1950s and shows an updated, sort of space-age design for the Athelston Club. A later renovation also included a handball court. In 1994, a private elevator was installed on the 18th floor to give access to the 19th floor of the club. The 20th floor of the building was for mechanical devices that are accessed by a narrow stairway. Originally, the building's lower 5 floors obtained water from the city of Battle Creek, while the tower offices were supplied by a 20th floor water tank. The basement of the building contained heating and mechanical rooms. In 1970, a new gas-fired heating system was installed. The basement also housed a 65-car parking garage with a special bay to wash cars inside the building. Over the years, the car wash was sometimes available for the public to use the indoor feature at a cost, as in this advertisement in the 1950s. The garage was entered from a ramp that extended from Jackson Street. There were 4 car valets attendants who were summoned by the phone to prepare cars for departing tenants. In just a few steps, a driver could exit a vehicle, enter the basement level elevator, and open the door at their office. The Thursday, August 12, 1931 issue of the Battle Creek Enquirer and Evening News was dedicated to the grand opening of the tower. Ads from every leading business of import of the city paid tribute to the new building and commemorated the importance of the day. The building was completed 2 weeks earlier than planned, and the city celebrated. The grand opening festivities went late into the night, and 29,311 people visited, accompanied by a 10-piece orchestra. 3,500 male visitors received cigars, and 10,000 women took home flowers while supplies lasted. 125 bank employees handed out cards describing different areas and features of the opulent facility. From miles away, the tower was visible, even at night. Lighting engineers installed floodlighting for the setbacks on the 15th, 18th, and 19th floor, giving the building a brilliant glow. The community had other buildings of similar design built about the same time. They were W.K. Kellogg Auditorium and Junior High School, designed by Detroit architect Albert Kahn. There was Community Hospital, and some private homes, such as this house on Merwood. The old Merchant National Bank building operations were overseen by W.G. Murray. His responsibilities included overseeing building's operations, figuring costs, and management of rentals, and providing services to the many tenants. He managed a staff of nighttime housekeepers, as well as 1 window washer, whose responsibilities included keeping each of the floor's 32 windows clean. Another man waxed the floors, visiting each office quarterly. There were 4 men responsible for caring for the building's Roman travertine floors, which required nightly washings with a special scrubbing machine. Even though they could be operated automatically, there were elevator and escalator attendants. Now I'm going to take a little step back, a few years in time from the grand opening. On October 28, 1929, the stock market crashed, and the Great Depression took hold of the world. Even though the bank's board of directors were aware of the cataclysmic economic state that the country was in, they thought it was not going to last very long. They hoped that recovery was just around the corner. So they moved forward to build their new bank building starting in 1930. But the Great Depression was just beginning to exert its stranglehold on the world's economy. The bank had to close on June 13, 1933. It reopened on June 11, 1935, as the Security National Bank, under the direction of George C. McKay. McKay was employed in the finance department of the Kellogg Company. The company's owner, W.K. Kellogg, suggested McKay should take over the bank's operation. He was going to have to use all of his financial skills to turn the bank around and be profitable. As part of the Security National Bank's sympathy to local citizens during the financial straits of the Great Depression, some 20,000 depositors of the former Old Merchants Bank were paid off in full because of the generous voluntary action taken by the bank's 4 largest depositors, the Kellogg Company, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, General Food Corporation, and the Postum Company. These heavy depositors accepted total liquidation payments of 40% instead of the originally scheduled 65% of their accounts. Thus, all depositors whose accounts were less than $100 were paid off in full. This actually affected tens of thousands of individuals. Bank President McKay wanted to create even more security for the clients of the Security National Bank, so he borrowed money and used some of his own cash to purchase the majority stock for the Security National Bank, and kept the institution free from the federal government's desire to control bank activities. During his first 9 years as chairman of the board, he took no salary and worked full days and continued to pay interest on the loans he made in acquiring the controlling stock. McKay worked steadily at the bank until 1973, keeping in office well into his 90s. Even when he no longer did typical banking work, he performed magic tricks for children in the bank's lobby and served as the human face of the institution. In March 1976, George C. McKay retired at age 95 as chairman of the Security National Bank after serving the board for 42 years. He died the following year. Now back to what was happening at the bank. In the mid-1940s, the bank acquired the Lakeview State Bank on the southeast corner of Capitol Avenue and Territorial Road, and over time other banks. There was a bank in Springfield, Urbandale, on North Avenue, 20th Street, Columbia Riverside, Verona, Bellevue, Augusta, Nashville, Leonidas, and they operated a branch on East Michigan Avenue across from the post factory. George E. McKay followed his father's footsteps at the Security National Bank. In 1948, he began as a building manager and moved up through the ranks to vice president, assuming the position of president at age 45. In 1948, the WBCK radio station began broadcasting from the 4th floor, and this air conditioner was installed to cool the lobby. By the 1950s, the bank's arcade housed the popular Prince's Shop, La Paul's Furs, L.G. Haig's Shoe Store, the House of Cards, Bailey Jewelers, along with some very popular stores like the Caramel Corn Candy Store at the Jackson Street entrance. About this same time, a large sign was attached to the front of the bank displaying the temperature and time. It covered the large front lobby windows. The bank's slogan was, "In Battle Creek, it's always bank with security." A fire in the WBCK studios on July 28, 1958, totally destroyed the studio. The 4th floor fire caused $500,000 of damage to the building, according to bank officials. The flames destroyed the WBCK studio, which housed a collection of 15,000 flammable 78 RPM records. The studios were in the west side of the building, but the smoke and firefighting efforts affected much of the building. The lobby was blackened by the fumes, and rivers of water poured down the escalators from the firefighting effort. Engineers feared that the plaster of the lobby's dome was permanently damaged. The fire chief explained that the building itself was fireproof, but the contents, especially highly flammable record albums, were not. A complete cleanup job was needed in the building, and the ceilings of the main floor shops were all replaced. The artist that had originally designed the bank's mosaic paintings, Alexander Reinskoff, returned to oversee the restoration of the water-damaged dome. He brought along a Hungarian artist, Paul Zazbody, to assist in the task, which required scaling 5 stories of scaffolding. Each section of the design was traced, then returned to Chicago, where workers meticulously cut stencils for the master artists. The ceiling was then repainted using those stencils, and gold leaf was reapplied in damaged areas of the elaborate dome. After the fire, WBCK moved its broadcasting studios and offices to the Golden Avenue location. The banking room was often used as a setting for communities' displays, such as these, put together by the Battle Creek First Methodist Church's Methodist men. This one displays historic texts and Bibles. This one, religious artwork. And this, a Thanksgiving theme. The Historical Society put up this display of Battle Creek firsts. They even brought in livestock to show their support of 4-H. Being in the center of downtown, the bank was often the background for parades, as shown in this photo of marching nurses, and this Memorial Day parade, when military vehicles and missiles were included. There were also festivals, like the 1956 Cereal Festival, where the community celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Kellogg Company with the longest breakfast table in the world and a history costume contest. The stage in front of the bank was the center of activities. To advertise the bank, the public relations folks used various methods, such as offering antique car-shaped banks for children and high school-themed banks, like this one of a high school football team helmet. They also used more adult-themed books and matches. For the Christmas holiday, the bank brought in a huge Christmas tree for the festive season. In the 1950s and 60s, the Battle Creek Central High School a cappella choir performed programs of Christmas music each holiday season in the banking room, in front of a live audience. It was live broadcast over the local WBCK radio station. For many in the community, it became a holiday tradition. In 1973, when the high school choir was preparing for a trip to Romania as goodwill ambassadors, they sang in the closed lobby as they caroled through downtown, and again for afternoon bank patrons. In the spring, they held a concert in the bank lobby. The acoustics were incredible. Here is a recording of that choir singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Starting in the early 1950s, downtown business districts throughout the country were feeling the pull of suburban shopping centers and malls. The public seemed to be shifting their shopping preference to shiny new stores grouped together with large parking areas for easy access. Battle Creek was no different than the rest of the country, as strip malls and shopping centers were being built away from the central business district. The public flocked to them. For many years, downtown developers had wanted to create a mall in the central business district, pointing to the success of the Kalamazoo Mall, which had been built in the late 1950s. It had helped keep that downtown commercial area active. In 1974, the city of Battle Creek voted to build a pedestrian mall to replace a portion of Michigan Avenue through downtown Battle Creek. After the community voted on the project, construction began. The new pedestrian mall would be named the Michigan Mall and would close off two sections of the city's Michigan Avenue between Monroe Street and Capitol Avenue, and from Capitol Avenue to McKinley Street. That would put the Security National Bank in the very middle of the park-like area. As the Michigan Mall progressed, the bank's president, George E. McKay, gave the building a makeover in 1975. The large Security National Bank sign on Michigan Avenue side of the building was removed. It was replaced by a black metal canopy with the Security National Bank logo and an electronic scrolling sign that displayed the time and temperature. The canopy had heat lights that kept the sidewalk under it free from snow. As part of the new look, new holiday decorations were also purchased, with Santa's sled and reindeer, including Rudolph, placed on the new canopy roof. The Silver Coin restaurant opened in the arcade, with its exterior entrance on the south side courtyard of the building being remodeled into a French provincial-styled brickwork covered with walls, bay windows, and a mansard roofline. It was designed by local architect John Burgess. In 1978, in honor of the founder of the Security National Bank, the building was named the George C. McKay Tower to honor the bank's longtime leader. But in 1908, the bank was renamed the Security National Bank and Trust. As part of the city's sesquicentennial celebration in 1981, the bank wished the community a happy 150th birthday with a billboard message. That year, the bank was purchased by the Detroit Bank and Trust Company, and on July 1, 1981, that company was acquired by Comerica Incorporated. It would be the last bank housed in the tower. To advertise the changing ownership, they installed a very large revolving Comerica sign on the roof in 1982. It could be seen from all over town. The ceiling was again damaged by water leaks in 1988 when a water pipe broke. It was repaired over a 3-week period by the Cereal City Decorating Incorporated. This time, the repairs required the workers to duplicate the design pattern that they found on another section of the ceiling and copied that outline on tracing paper. Then the designs were painted with custom-created colors to match the existing walls. The bank held a ribbon cutting for the newly repaired banking room in the fall of that year. To bring attention to the building, on Friday, April 24, 1989, a laser light show with accompanied music filled the banking room. Theatrical smoke was used to make the laser lights visible as they reflected off of the ceiling's gold leaf designs. The music chosen to accompany the lights was The God of Thunder. The production was met with acclaim, and the building looked incredible. In 1990, the Athelstan Club closed due to lack of membership. Dining clubs were no longer popular, and many people joined country clubs instead. The Michigan Mall was removed in 1992. This parade celebrated the reopening of the street. The pedestrian mall was considered a failure, and the citizens voted to remove the mall and return the area into a through street, and automobile traffic once again resumed on Michigan Avenue after a 17-year absence. Because of the building's deterioration and the high cost of repairs, Comerica made plans to demolish the building, but the building was purchased by Door Industrial Development from Bay City in 1993. Arthur Door, the founder of the Door Corporation, told the Battle Creek Enquirer that the building is just too good to come down. They refurbished parts of the tower. In 1994, they decided the building needed a new image and a new name, and the Name the Tower contest was held. The winner was Maureen Craig, who won with the name Heritage Tower. That name recognized its stately significance to the city. Comerica signed a 10-year lease, and the building's escalators and elevator were updated. The 19th floor was remodeled into office space. To shift attention and to the beauty and the need to try to preserve the building, the local history magazine called Heritage featured an article and photos of the Art Deco treasure. In 2001, the Battle Creek Enquirer reported that a 33-year-old maintenance worker for the building named John Henning was distraught from a breakup with his girlfriend. He gained access to the roof, scratched his initials, date of birth, and an epitaph into the wall, and at 9:30 a.m., he jumped. I had been told that he had to jump repeatedly because each time he jumped, he kept landing on the upper building's setbacks. He landed on one of the setbacks, and then had to crawl to the edge and jump again, landing on another setback and crawling to the edge before he made the final plunge. A postal worker that was delivering his route on Michigan Avenue said he was shocked when the man fell onto the roof of a car, a white Grand Am, right next to him. The roof of the car had absorbed his fall. Mary DeMasso, an employee at the jewelry store across West Michigan Avenue from the bank building, reported, "I was cleaning the display case when I heard a noise, and I looked out and I saw the car bouncing. We were shocked to see a body out there." Her co-worker, Linda Parker, added, "We thought someone was just sitting in the car and something fell off the building." Unbelievably, the man survived the 20-story fall with only some broken bones, a punctured lung, and a record for surviving such an attempt. Henry recovered from his fall and passed away naturally in 2017. In 2005, Comerica left the building and a Sprint cell tower was installed on the roof. In 2007, Dorr Associates briefly listed the building for sale on eBay. The winning bidder, a group of real estate investors, all under the age of 30, pledged $3,200,100. However, the group ran out of time to raise the money needed for the purchase, so the sale fell through. In 2008, the tower was purchased by the Florida-based Random Acquisitions, LLC. The lobby was rented out for weddings and other special events. But the upper floors were condemned. The last restaurant in the building, Barista Blues, located on Michigan Avenue Street side of the building, left in 2011. Random Acquisitions eventually abandoned the building and it fell into disrepair. About this same time, the similar skyscraper down the street, the Battle Creek Tower, formerly the Central National Bank, also called the Wolverine Tower, also called the Transamerica Tower, was included in a tax incentive zone and converted into a financially successful property. The upper floors are condominiums and the lower floors are used for small businesses. In 2012, the Heritage Tower was without power, water, or heating for several weeks. The city of Battle Creek forced all occupants to leave the building unless all utilities were restored. The Battle Creek Community Foundation helped by paying to stabilize the Heritage Tower's roof in 2013. That same year, the building came under the ownership of 25 West Michigan Holdings, LCC, a subsidiary of 616 Development located in Grand Rapids. They hoped to restore the building, but they also failed. From this failed effort emerged a new owner, Mark Harmson of Grand Rapids. He believed in the potential of the project as a tool to create a positive change in downtown Battle Creek. Having been the former director of real estate for the company 25 Michigan Holdings, LLC, He was all too familiar with the challenges of the project. In 2017, his company, MDH Development, LLC, began to piece together what is undoubtedly the most complicated funding stack in the region's history. During the years of neglect, trespassers entered every area of the building. Ceilings and walls were damaged by water or ripped open to access any valuable metals in the plumbing or electrical wiring. The water and electricity had been off for years, and the basement boilers were submerged in 9 feet of water that had leaked through the roof or come in through broken plumbing. But the single most damaging act to the building was that vandals had dropped a cement block from high up on the exterior fire escape. It had fallen through the glass skylight of the central dome of the banking lobby. This hole, undiscovered at first, allowed for a massive amount of water damage as moisture accumulated and spread behind the once lavish plaster murals in the rotunda. As time passed, great chunks of the ceiling fell to the floor, 4 stories below. The repair costs escalated by the millions as the building decayed. Harmson, who successfully brought old buildings back to use through similar projects in Grand Rapids, knew that the amounting funding for this building was overwhelming. He had approached the Battle Creek Community Foundation to fund a roof rebuild as a stopgap measure against more water damage in the building while he searched for funding for the restoration. Funding for the tower renovation was challenging for a variety of reasons. Due to the poor condition of the building, it was going to require $30 to $40 million for the renovation. However, the appraised value of the building was not over $15 million. The payback from a refinance or sale of the building would not cover the loan. In 2018, to assist in making the project more financially viable, and because of its amazing design, it was named to the National Register of Historic Places, which allowed for a 20% tax credit. Following a lengthy due diligence process performed by the consultant firm Gingras Goebel, the Battle Creek Community Foundation leadership voted to move forward with a guarantor role during the construction phase through the first 5 years of the occupancy. When Harmson met with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, he was pleasantly surprised when their vice chair said, "We're going to give you $10 million. We simply always bypass Battle Creek, and it's time for Battle Creek to get some help." This was the largest grant ever given by the MEDC. The $38 million project received $7.6 million in federal historic tax credits and $10 million from the Michigan Community Revitalization Program. MDH Development, LLC, spearheaded a funding lineup that came together with the following players: the Battle Creek Community Foundation, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation in partnership with the City of Battle Creek, Battle Creek Unlimited, First Source Bank, Old National Bank, along with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Harmson pulled together the team of integrated architecture from Grand Rapids to be the architect of record. The Christmas Company of Grand Rapids was going to be the construction manager, and they used architecture and design of Battle Creek as the preservation architect to oversee the historic aspects of the project and the federal historic tax grant. The masonry exterior had broken sections and was missing limestone panels. There were areas that had falling brick parapets and missing mortar joints, as well as sliding limestone corners at the upper levels. Cheryl Early of Wiss, Janney, Elster Associates was hired as the structural engineer for preservation. Blair Bates from Building Restoration Incorporated provide rappelling and drone scanning to help identify areas of concern so they could create drawings to address those issues. Architecture and design owner Randy Case, who was included in the project as the preservation architect, said that when they first went to look at the building, it was winter, and the water that had come through the broken skylight had frozen into about 1.5 inches of ice on the banking room floor. He knew that this was going to be a challenge. The water that leaked through the ceiling had seeped into the basement areas that housed the boilers and mechanisms for the escalators. The water damage to the banking room ceiling was incredibly extensive. Much of the plaster had fallen to the floor, and the areas that were still visible had so much damage that most of the Art Deco designs had been almost completely washed away. The ceiling in the banking room atrium was in such bad shape that it was determined that after plaster repair and replacement, the ceiling would be primed and totally repainted. Color samples were taken to allow replication, and the existing conditions were photographed and documented by Harmson's photographer brother, Scott Harmson. Old photographs were searched out to help put the missing pieces together, and a photoshopped image was created in the computer to simulate the decorative work. John Post of Post Art Studio in Grand Rapids had started the process and met Cliff Towell, an independent artist with a master's in fine art, at the job site. Towell was from the Battle Creek and was restoring the tile work with Battle Creek tile. Post and Towell worked together with the paint restoration. Post was connected to a graphic art studio in Grand Rapids who had a CNC router they could use. They used the computer image to create the stencil pattern with a sticky backing to allow them to apply the stencils directly to the ceiling and walls to allow the decorative work to be positioned exactly as it was originally designed. This process and work took the longest time of any that was incorporated at the site. Scaffolding was constructed to give artists and renovators easy access to the ceiling. The Art Deco chandelier light fixtures were removed and restored utilizing LED lights that added appropriate light to enhance the ceiling while maintaining their historic integrity. This work was completed by Ron Koenig of Building Arts and Conservation of Ann Arbor. The main deposit vault was cleaned and finished to become a tenant lounge, and the raw space behind the vault became a fitness center to add to tenants' amenities. The first floor main corridor was cleaned and restored, and the original storefront spaces are set up to allow new tenant build-outs in the future. The same is true of the south wing of the second floor. The building's owners were always on the lookout for ways to incorporate old original items in the newly remodeled building. Sometimes furnishing from the banks has turned up in various locations, such as this bench and baking table that are now displayed at the Barn Theater lobby located in Augusta. To work on the upper floors of the building, the laborers couldn't use the building's existing elevators, so an exterior elevator system was built on the Michigan Avenue side so work could be done with easy access throughout the building. The building owner, Harmson, said, "With the building being the most historic and iconic in Battle Creek, we wanted a new name to reflect the historic past of Battle Creek and discovered that the area now known as Battle Creek was originally part of Milton Township in the mid-1800s. He took that history and named the building the Milton. Over $32 million in investment was required to restore the Milton, which features 85 apartment units and 32,000 square feet of commercial space along Michigan Avenue. Along with the building's 85 apartment units, the Milton includes 5 commercial spaces. 2 of the spaces are occupied by the Kellogg Company and financial institution Raymond James, while the 3rd space has been leased to the Battle Creek Community Foundation to create a co-op market and make updates to the mezzanine levels. The project was awarded the 2022 Governor's Award for Historic Preservation, was recognized as standout projects across Michigan that exemplify the collaboration and deep impact preservation can have in Michigan communities. When it opened for the public in 2022, the community turned out in droves to see what had been done. The Kingman Museum of Natural History presented displays in the banking room. The Battle Creek Community Foundation hosted a month-long open house that included images that children could color in with crayons. There were Christmas decorations. The whole Battle Creek community celebrated the beautiful renovation with pride. Mark Harmson was correct. It helped change the city's self-image. The renovation was a success.
Access Vision. Your voice, your community.